You're listening to Contesting Wrestling Premium.
Primo.
As usual, I am Doc Diamondfire. I'm here with Professor Abelson, and we watched a show that popped into Ben's consciousness recently.
WCW Halloween Havoc, 1990. I just happened to watch the Steiner Brothers versus the Midnight Express on YouTube, and that was on WCW Worldwide, like leading up to this show. So at the end of that, they ran down the card, and it got me excited.
Well, there's definitely a lot of good stuff on this card. WCW at the time was still kind of holding it together, but they had started the descent into what would become the early 90s kind of malaise of WCW.
As I've mentioned before, I think this is true for you as well, Doc. This that's not a word. This particular point in wrestling has a special allure for me because it's like right before I started watching.
So it's like it just happened, but this period seems like it was forever ago.
Right.
When it wasn't. It was just a little bit before everything you already know.
And right, exactly. And so I remember having a bunch of the WCW trading cards and them talking about these matches and these shows that happened a couple years before I started watching.
Yeah, for sure.
And I had watched through this whole period of WCW a few years back, but I didn't remember that many of the details. I didn't remember I remembered the events that happened on this, but not that they happened on this particular show.
Right.
The main thing that I remembered, as we'll talk about in depth, is the fantastic Steiner Brothers versus Nasty Boys match. That's on.
Oh, yeah. Real good. For the NWA United States Tag Team Championship.
Yeah.
Because there were two sets of belts going on.
Right. There's two sets of belts, which means a shitload of tag team matches on this show. So the video that's on Peacock starts with 4 tag team matches back to back. The original show had a bunch of had another hour of show that isn't included on this video.
I have the match listing up. Matches that we did not see, there were 2 proper dark matches. It's Tim Horner versus Barry Horowitz. Rip Rogers versus Reno Riggins. What we did not see on the broadcast, we did not see Terry Taylor versus Bill Irwin.
Which is fine.
Yeah, we did not see the Junkyard Dog versus Moondog
Well,
Rex.
we did see that, but we had to find that on YouTube.
Yep.
So you can find that match. And we'll talk a little more about why the fuck Junkyard Dog is in WCW at this point and the kind of larger significance of that match for this card.
And we did not get Blade and Steel the Master Blasters versus the Southern Boys. And the Master Blasters was Al Green and a very, very green Kevin Nash.
Yeah, and the
Southern Boys, Tracy Smothers and Steve Armstrong, one of the Armstrong boys.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that match, but unfortunately we weren't able to find it anywhere.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that, not because I'm sure it was any good, but because it's always fun to see Nash before he figured himself out.
Yeah.
And the Master Blasters looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
Elsewhere on this show, the Southern Boys look ridiculous.
Yeah, we will be able to Master Blast at some other occasion, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully.
That we do see the Southern Boys later on, that's right. Yeah, as we got it on the show, we get 2 hours of the show on Peacock. It starts with the 4 tag team matches. 2 kind of lower card matches, then the U.S. tag title match, and then the World Tag Team title match. Yeah. And they're all pretty good.
And they are. This is a good show. As for, the 2 hours we see are full of really good wrestling. And the first match is the Midnight Express, the Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane version, of course, with Jim Cornette, versus Ricky Morton and Tommy Rich. They explain that Robert Gibson has been injured.
Yeah, by the Freebirds.
Morton had been by the Freebirds, right. And Morton had been teaming with Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Former World Heavyweight Champion Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Yeah, briefly.
What was the story with him winning the title? It was the promoter was just decided to put it on him against the NWA's wishes or something like that?
I heard in an interview, and I can't remember who the interview was even
Flair,
with, but it was somebody
Flair,
that was there, with Flair perhaps, that they screwed Harley.
Yeah.
With Tommy Rich, and Tommy Rich dropped the belt in short order.
He's not good.
No, Ricky Morton, on the other hand, is as Ricky Morton as he ever was.
Except he has a
You know,
ponytail.
he can command the crowd at his whim like he could at any point in his career up to today.
Yeah.
And yeah, he carried that part of the team. But the Midnights, of course, were professional heel team.
Oh man, and the version
Yeah.
with Stan Lane, I think, really is the best Midnights. I mean,
Yeah.
Stan Lane is so fucking sleazy. He's like I believe that he's like what's his face from American Psycho.
Yeah.
What's the character's name again? Patrick Bateman. Yeah, he's a Patrick Bateman type, but one that also does something resembling karate.
Throws a couple of good-looking kicks. He does.
It's a Stan Fu or something. I guess that's where Mark Briscoe kind of got it from.
That's possible. Because Mark Briscoe's stuff doesn't look as good.
No.
Stan Lane throws a couple of like well-practiced kicks.
But he's like
Mark Briscoe just kind of waves his arms around in the air and then hits you.
Yeah, he's this like fucking perfectly bronzed douchebag, you know?
Yeah.
It's Mr. Lane. We didn't know growing
completely.
up, we saw fucking Stan Lane and fucking Doc Hendricks. And we had no idea that they were, two of the great tag team wrestlers of all time. We'll talk about Mr. Hendricks' alter ego in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But yeah, the match, when it's fucking Ricky Morton in there with the Midnights, it's fantastic.
Yeah, they all know how to work together. They've done it a lot.
Yeah.
And they know where to go and where to be, and Cornette knows where he fits into all of that, interfering when necessary.
And I talk a lot about Stan Lane here, but of course we must talk about the recently deceased, unfortunately, Mr. Bobby Eaton.
Yeah, Bobby Eaton was,
rules.
What can you say about Bobby Eaton? He was always really good. He knew how to do everything, and he was always he was always there when you needed him.
I still think so. He has a match with Ric Flair on Clash of the Champions for the World Heavyweight title just before Flair jumps to WWF. And it is a fantastic fucking match. We should definitely cover it at some point. But if they had a little foresight in WCW and known that, Flair was on his way out, which I guess they didn't quite know, it would have been pretty awesome if they had put the title on Eaton there.
Yeah, they could have put the belt on Bobby. He could have either defended it or dropped it. He could have defended it against Ricky Morton. People would have wanted to see that.
Yeah, or he could have he could have lost it to Luger, who was the guy they eventually put it on, or Barry Windham.
That would have been better for Luger, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Than what they did do.
Exactly. Instead, Flair left with the belt, they vacated it, and then they had Windham and Luger fight for the title. But yeah, no one ever beat the champ.
No one ever beat the champ. And that's no good. So the match goes about 20 minutes. At some point, the Southern Boys come out, both dressed in ridiculous Jim Cornette outfits.
Yes.
Complete with tennis rackets. And start the major distraction interference.
Of course, the tennis racket at this point has already been used a couple of times in the match by Mr. Cornette himself. Yeah. So yeah, they cause the distraction, and then Tommy Rich hits one of the Midnights with the racket and gets the pin. And the baby face
Paul
is
Heyman
rejoiced.
on commentary is beside himself with the cheating.
Right.
And Heyman and Jim Ross on the call. And I'm always a big fan of Heyman and Jim Ross, because Heyman always does his damnedest to actually piss off Jim Ross. And that's also why Jim Ross liked working with him. You go out there and you do it. And then the crazier that Heyman got, the more completely straight JR got. And the contrast was always great.
Let us not forget, because this is a Halloween episode, I think JR is dressed up as Dick Tracy. And
maybe. I think they're in Chicago. I think he's trying to be dressed up as like Al Capone.
Oh, okay. Paulie is clearly Dracula. Tony Schiavone is the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, Tony, they cut to Tony all night in his Phantom gear. Nobody mentions it.
No.
But it's you don't have to. You don't have
a few other cool matches, a few other cool moments from this match. They hit the fucking rocket launcher onto the stage, which looks really impressive.
They have the stage that comes right up to the ring, like they did.
Right. Yeah, and they do all sorts of cool spots on there. Fucking Eaton hits the diamond cutter at one point, which was not really a thing yet. I guess Johnny Ace was doing it in Japan, maybe.
Yeah, it was a move that you could find here and there. It was just, didn't really have a name or anything. Yeah. It was just a move.
But Eaton knew all of the moves.
Yes, so. Eaton knew all of the moves, exactly.
And he did that motherfucking Alabama Jam leg drop off the top rope, which is an absolutely gorgeous spectacle of a move. Fucking love it.
Yeah, and he did it for years and years, apparently, without injuring himself nearly as much as some people that do leg drops, which is commendable.
Yeah, great stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Oh, and last thing, Stan Lane does the JYD headbutts. He is the first of several people on the show to do the, crawling on all fours headbutts, like JYD, who's on the show. And I guess, a lot of these guys were big fans of his.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like?
Or had worked with him in Mid-South even before he had gone to WWF. And yeah, so there's a bunch of, there were a few tributes going on throughout the night. And the next thing that happens after this match is over is somewhat inexplicable and stupid. And so Phantom of the Opera, Tony Schiavone, is with Sting, who's talking about the Black Scorpion, or I don't know if he's even talking about the Black Scorpion. I guess he's talking about Sid. But the Black Scorpion is there.
Sting is so fired up, and he immediately just stumbles on his words, and nobody cares. They all love him so much. He comes on, and he's like, I hope you're not too much into your butt, and not your too much into your head, and not your you-know-what. I'm fired up, Tony. I'm fired
Hell
up.
Yeah.
And the crowd cheers, because Sting knew it wasn't about being perfectly eloquent for him.
Right.
He just comes out and
he's excited.
Electrify the crowd with your energy. Yeah. Right. He's excited. He's gonna sting someone tonight.
Right in their butt.
Right in their butt, or their you-know-what even.
Yeah. But then the Black Scorpion appears and says something about how he's going to give Sting a taste of his black magic.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he runs into, not really the audience. People are sitting on the steps. Grabs a young woman by her upper wrist, which on television is the young woman weak spot.
She looks like she's part of the crew, maybe.
Yeah. Drags her behind a curtain. There is some magic that happened, and then they run out from the other side of the curtain as though they teleported, and certainly didn't just run across the back of the stage that everybody.
And there's fireworks for some reason.
Yeah,
it's just stupid and terrible, and has nothing to do with anything else that happens throughout the night.
No, it's a cheap magic trick. It's not even a good magic trick. It's a cheap disappearance magic trick. And Sting runs in to save the day, and the young woman runs and jumps into his arms, then immediately jumps out of his arms and runs away. And Sting does not catch up to the Black Scorpion this time.
Who is, I'm pretty sure at this point, Ole Anderson. You can kind of tell.
Yeah, I mean, Ole's doing the voice, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The Black Scorpion it was a big angle for most of this year. It did not have a satisfying conclusion, and Ole resigned as booker as soon as it was over.
Yeah, which is the only good thing to come out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So we miss two matches. We don't see Terry Taylor versus Bill Irwin, and we don't see Brad Armstrong versus J.W. Storm. Oh, and actually now looking down the list, we don't see the Master Blasters versus the Southern Boys. All those matches are here.
Yeah.
What we do see next is the Renegade Warriors, Chris and Mark Youngblood, versus the Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes. And the thing, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes look exactly like guys in big hair metal bands looked by the end of 1990.
True.
Just kind of bloated and bleary, and they still could lip sync to their songs, but it was winding down.
Those fucking sequined overalls that Michael Hayes is wearing, make up for anything else that might have been missing by then.
One of the most influential minds in the history of wrestling.
The Renegade Warrior. First of all, the Freebirds are with Little Richard Marley, who I don't know what his deal was.
No idea.
But he was with them and gets involved in this match. Team Renegade Warriors. So I'm guessing they're like the younger brothers of Jay Youngblood, who was a bigger star than either of them years before this.
That's a pure guess, but it's as good a guess as mine.
They're from the Mescalado Reservation in New Mexico, the ring announcer says. So I guess they're Native Americans.
That's the story.
They've got Native American blood in their veins, and they'll fight.
They'll fight. In WCW. I'm looking it up. Okay, Mark Youngblood is, well, I don't think he's really an Indian.
No.
And we'll leave it at that. Chris Youngblood?
Are they actual brothers and brothers of Jay Youngblood?
Oh, actually, yeah. They're actually both brothers of Jay Youngblood.
Okay.
My mistake. Okay. So there you go.
Well, wait. You didn't. I thought you were going to look up Little Richard Marley.
I have that in another tab here. Named Rocky King, William Bullware Jr.
Yeah, Rocky King was a jobber
former wrestler and referee. Yeah,
he was a jobber on NWA TV. He was like one of the jobbers who won against other jobbers sometimes.
Yeah, maybe the Freebirds liked him and wanted to get him in on the act.
All right, that's cool.
Who knows?
Yeah, no, he's a good worker.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad that mystery was solved. We never have to wonder anything about anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here at a computer recording. Might as well look stuff up on the fly.
Yeah, and like, why do research before the podcast?
No, I'm too busy watching shit.
Same at this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah. Speaking of working, this match is all about the DDT. The announcers put over that Hayes has been taking people out with the DDT.
The Freebirds are, I guess they're the heels in this match, but they're cheered by everybody.
Well, they are the greatest rock and roll band of all time.
Right, they are the greatest rock and roll band of all time. That's true.
They just edge out Limp Bizkit.
Yeah. The WWF's favorite band in the whole world, Limp Bizkit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much the story of this match. Is eventually Marley interferes, and it's a great little spot where one of the Renegade Warriors does an O'Connor on Jimmy Garvin, an O'Connor roll, and the ref is distracted by Marley, and Hayes slips in and hits the DDT off of the O'Connor.
Yeah, it's a good spot. It's well done. It pops the crowd huge. They were ready to see it.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Yeah, this match was fine. It was not Ricky Morton and whoever he was tagging with versus the Midnights. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. This is probably my least favorite match of the whole show that we saw.
Yeah. But Michael Hayes makes up for it just by, as you said, his sequence and his hairy gut.
Big time.
Yeah.
All right.
A much better match, if we just want to move on, comes up next.
But before that, we got a little interview with Flair, Arn Anderson, and Sid Vicious, who were the Horsemen at the time. I guess they only had 3 at the moment. Though I guess maybe Barry Windham was
Tully there?
No, Tully was gone. Remember, Arn and Tully left for WWF, and Arn came back by himself.
Right. And Tully didn't. They didn't want him back after the drug test failure.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
So, Sid, intense as always.
Oh, yeah.
Good Sid, solid Sid promo. Nothing special, but, from the beginning, he had that intensity. He had that character. Sid, we'll say more when we talk about his match, but he was one of the first guys in WCW I was aware of. Someone bought me a wrestling action figure knowing that I was into wrestling action figures when I was a small child. And it was Sid. It was a WCW figure, which I was puzzled by because I was not aware of other wrestling at the time. So I think...
Right, why would you be?
I think that Sid Vicious figure was the first I had ever heard of WCW.
I remember first hearing about Sid in Nintendo Power because he was in the WWF WrestleMania game on the Super Nintendo, the first one.
That's right, Super WrestleMania.
That's it, Super WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Not the best WWF game they ever put out.
No one had any special moves. Everyone had the exact same moveset.
If you're gonna play a WWF game on the Super Nintendo, play Raw. It has all the features possible on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, yeah. Royal Rumble was good too, but Raw was an upgrade.
Right. Raw was basically Royal Rumble with more stuff.
Right.
Different rosters, kind of.
Yeah. And also like Raw had all those crazy special super moves that were all impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. Taking the Mortal Kombat
right.
experience at the time and then cranking it up a bit. No, Raw was just better in general. The animation was better. The sound effects were better. There were more modes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a better game.
But despite not knowing who he was, just seeing and the Sid figure, you know, it doesn't move at all. It's one of those Galoob WCW figures.
Yeah,
but
those were good.
Yeah, it looks like Sid, and it looks fucking cool. He's a big-ass dude, and he looks mean. And that's, you know, kind of sometimes all you really need. All right, so moving on. Speaking of really all you need is to be kind of mean, the Nasty Boys versus the Steiner Brothers for the WCW United States Tag Team titles. Holy fuck, this is one of my favorite tag team matches ever.
Yeah, this match was awesome. The Nasty Boys were very much on their game here. They knew they were fearless with their bodies and their offense and their defense. And the Steiner brothers were just fucking awesome, the both of them. This is peak Steiners right here, and that peak lasts a few years.
Yeah, they only really had this one match at this time. It wasn't, you know, a long program at all. The Nasty Boys went to the WWF pretty shortly after this.
Yeah.
But they just start fucking brawling right from the beginning, and you know that it's potatoes everywhere with these two teams.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Just, I'm sure nobody in the ring would have it any other way.
Yeah. Oh, man, they're beating the fucking crap out of each other. And the fucking Steiners just do a whole bunch of cool moves, which is what they do.
Throw all these suplexes on these meaty-ass Nasty Boys.
Scott reverses a superplex and then does a belly-to-belly superplex.
Yeah.
Fucking Tiger Driver. They just, they fucking hit all of their not all of their big weapons, but a whole bevy of their big weapons, leading to the top rope bulldog, all as the shine of the match.
Heyman goes insane. Like, he's never seen the top rope bulldog before. He's like, all this stuff is great, but I've seen it. I haven't seen that, you know? And I like the structure for a shine, where you do everything and then you do your whole comeback into your finish and then don't get the pin. Not because the guy kicked out, but because the ref was distracted and the other guy came in and hit you with something. And then the whole match... the chair in this case. In the whole match, the crowd is thinking, man, the Steiners should have won already.
Right.
Every second this match goes on, the Steiners are getting fucked. Oh, what if they lose now? They should have won. And that's a great way to keep the crowd with you.
Yeah, and the heat is long and pretty boring, I must say. For a great match, like, it's all bear hugs. So I have, my roommate Charlie was here with his girlfriend. And she sat down and watched like the middle of the match and was bored to tears and ended up leaving. And then Charlie came in the room and sat down and just saw the finish and thought it was one of the most exciting things he's ever seen. So that's wrestling for you.
It's true.
But yeah, during the heat, Nasties do some JYD headbutts as well. This is one of those examples of heels working super boring heat because the crowd already saw a glimmer of what they want to see. And now the whole match is keeping it away from them until, you know, the best possible moment to pull the trigger on it. So, yeah, they're fucking doing abdominal stretches and just like giving them wedgies with their tights during the abdominal stretch.
Well, the Nasty Boys never gave a fuck about shit like that. They'd do whatever. Because that was what the appeal of them were. They didn't wrestle like wrestlers. They wrestled like two guys you'd meet who were just going to fight, you know, who didn't really necessarily even know how to fight. But they were certainly going to fight.
And
they were schoolyard bullies.
They knew how to do a spike pile driver, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
They did that. But at some point, fucking... Scott Steiner does the best Boston Crab reversal I've ever seen. Just flips him right over with his legs.
Yeah, with his incredibly muscular everything.
Yeah. Fucking Rick gets the top rope clothesline to both Nasties with one of them facing forwards and the other facing backwards, which looks really cool. And then, the Nasties get tripped up and Scott comes in and everybody in the arena knows what's fucking coming. And they all get to their feet and start going crazy. Yep. And Scott murders Brian Knobbs with the fucking Frankensteiner.
What a great move.
Drops him right on his goddamn head. And the best part about it is he keeps his legs around his neck and just kind of twists around at the end of it to go to the pin. Like he has complete control over Knobbs' head the entire time.
Yeah, the entire time.
And is just like screwing his fucking neck off.
I mean, Scott was as much of a brawler as he could be and as much of a suplex machine as he could be. He was also very technical with the limbs. He knows what he's doing. They were amateur wrestlers.
That goddamn Frankensteiner is still the coolest wrestling move of all time.
He just backflipped so effortlessly. It's different than like the Lucha Hurricane Rana.
Right.
It doesn't really look like the guys are helping each other.
Right, and it looks like a fucking pile driver.
Exactly. It looks like a pile driver.
And Scott is so goddamn big. It's really impressive that he can do that backflip.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Such good shit.
Such good shit, man. The Steiners and the Nasties.
And then
after the match, the Nasties attack the Steiners.
Yeah. And then, this is really kind of weird. So the Nasties attack the Steiners. Then they leave the ringside area. They do an interview with Scott, who now looks completely fresh again, has the tag title belt around his waist. There's a concessions guy behind him who attacks him and turns out to be Sags. And the Nasty Boys kind of look fresh. It looks like they taped this beforehand.
Yeah, it does.
And because,
that I noticed that. That was weird.
Sags shouldn't have had enough time to, put on a disguise.
Right, no, where was he going to find a disguise? I can understand him, grabbing a tray from one of the concession stand people, but, where does he get, he has, an apron and a beard, and, they're all sweaty. I don't know. Weird.
Fucking just WCW weird. Production is just really baffling sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So now is when, in between the two tag title matches, is when the Junkyard Dog Moondog Rex match happened.
Right, and we did find that and watch it.
It's on YouTube. JYD comes out with some kind of monster mask on, apparently.
Yeah, like a wolf or something.
Yeah, supposed to be dressed as the Moondog. They have him come out while the ring announcer is announcing Moondog Rex.
Yeah, Moondog is already in the ring. But it makes it look like Gary Michael Capetta made a mistake, and he didn't. He was just announcing Moondog Rex first.
Right.
The production made the mistake if they wanted to match that. They should have had a quick shot. Even if they were trying to de-emphasize Rex, he had a quick shot of Rex while his name is being said, and then cut back to Junkyard Dog.
I think they were trying to make us think that it was Moondog Rex because of the mask at first.
Junkyard Dog's black, man, and neither of them wear shirts.
But yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, JYD is there. He doesn't do very much. This is towards the end of his career. He was in WCW for a few months, but I don't think he was going to really put anybody over, and I don't think anybody really wanted to put him over because he wasn't going to put anyone over. So they have him fight a guy who he just fought a lot when he was in WWF.
He wound down his WWF tenure. He wasn't in the WWF for all that long, really.
Yeah.
But he was popular while he was there, but he kind of let himself go, after Mid-South folded. He was a guy who was comfortable in his role, a little too comfortable in his role. Yeah. And once he had, goal competition for top babyface, he couldn't really do it anymore. And it's a shame, but that's how it goes.
I think, though, there was a moment in 88, 89, even 87, I think, in, the early days of Saturday Night's Main Event.
Yeah.
When JYD was insanely over. And I think he knew that even though he was insanely over and potentially could have been as popular as Hogan, they were never gonna let him get as popular as Hogan.
No, they were never going to let him be as popular as Hogan. Couple people tell stories, and you can believe them if you want, about them making sure no one started to approach that. And I don't think it was more because the idea was, oh, we're favoring Hogan. I think the idea was they didn't want to split the audience. Hogan was going so well.
Yeah.
Jake Roberts says that, like, you know, he was a heel, he was about to start his heel program on top with Hogan. And they do a couple of things, and instead of chanting Hogan, the crowd starts chanting DDT.
Right.
And Vince flips his shit, and he's like, oh, we can't do this now. You know, Hogan still needs to be unequivocally the top guy. So they turn Roberts' face. And, of course, he had a great face run.
Right.
But that was, that was that.
Yeah.
They didn't let anybody approach him until Warrior came along.
Right.
And by then, it was clear that they needed to start exploring their options. It was time.
That's true.
It was time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, this match is not a whole lot. JYD doesn't sell anything for most of the match.
Towards the end, a little bit.
Yeah, to the point where Moondog brings a chair in, and JYD's like, you're going to hit me with the chair? And he grabs it and hits himself with it a whole bunch of times. It's like, shit ain't going to do anything. Eventually, Moondog hits him with his bone.
Yeah.
And which allows him to get a little bit of the advantage for a little while.
Yeah, he hits JYD in the gut with his bone that he brings to the ring. The whole match is only about 3.5 minutes long.
Eventually JYD comes back and headbutts him, and that's it.
And that's it. JYD over. Yeah. Nobody in the crowd gave a fuck. Like, this is the least over I've ever seen Junkyard Dog ever. Because usually, like, whatever his performance is like, everyone loves him.
Right.
But it was in Chicago, Yeah. He was really big in the South.
Right.
And it wasn't his town.
Yeah.
That's my excuse anyway, because I like Dog.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Sure.
So now we have the World Tag Team title match.
This is another awesome tag team match.
Another awesome tag team match. Yeah. This one involving Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, who was the TV champ at the time of the Four Horsemen, against Doom. Wow, with Teddy Long, Theodore R. Long.
Godfather.
And this is Doom, no masks. Like, I don't know if they were quite baby faces, but they are definitely the faces of the match against Flair and Arn.
Flair was very... this was at the point where WCW management was pointedly ignoring how beloved Flair had gotten. But the Horsemen were definitely the heels.
Right.
Right, and Doom were definitely not baby faces, but the people liked them.
Yeah.
And Flair could be the heel against anybody,
Yeah.
That was just the deal. And Arn Anderson, of course, he always had that like assassin kind of vibe around him where, don't trust him because he'll just kill you with the DDT.
Flair and Arn do an incredible job of communicating with each other in the ring in order to present to the crowd miscommunication between them.
Yes.
It's really fucking brilliant.
They've been doing the Horseman shtick for a while. It's not like they hadn't had tag matches, although Arn did usually tag with Tully.
Shivani points out that Flair was a 3-time tag team champion in the 70s.
Oh, it was Heyman.
Heyman
points out, yeah. Right. He doesn't name his partners or anything, but he does say that, and I found that to be an interesting thing.
Who were his partners? Do you remember?
No, but I'll look it up. The only reason we don't do more research beforehand is we don't know this is coming up.
Sometimes I do, and I'm like, I'll just look it up while we're talking. Why not?
Flair, NWA World Tag Team. All right. List of NWA World Tag Team Champ. I'm looking at this a different way. This is how you Wikipedia. I'm going to Ric Flair's Wikipedia.
All right.
Usually there's like a title history section.
Well,
for wrestlers.
Well, so I found the title. It was Greg Valentine, actually.
Okay, Greg Valentine.
In 1976 and 1977. And I guess those are... I feel like there's got to be if it was 3, it was someone else. Because they only list 2 with those 2.
I got this here. U.S. champion 6 times. Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions 3 times. with Rip Hawk, Greg Valentine, and Big John Studd.
Yeah.
NWA World Tag Team Championship 3 times, 2 times with Greg Valentine, and 1 time with Blackjack Mulligan.
Blackjack Mulligan, okay.
I see. The Wikipedia page is NWA World Tag Team Championship Mid-Atlantic version.
I actually found it in the list of WCW World Tag Team titles, which goes back to when it was the NWA title.
If you're ever really interested in, dear listeners, studying the title history of wrestling and all its minutiae, yeah, good fucking luck.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it,
It's
and
complicated.
it's twisted. Oh, yeah. It's interesting, but, you know.
Just look up WCW International World Title and try to understand what that was.
Right, without looking up any other details. Anyway, Doom versus the Horsemen here. Doom were very much on top of their game. People were starting to notice how incredibly good Ron Simmons was. And Butch Reed was already like a top guy in territories. And Flair was happy to work with him, it looked like.
Yeah.
And he did.
Especially Ron. Ron works really well with both Flair and Arn at the beginning. He does some of those JYD headbutts as well.
Yep.
Butch Reed had slowed down by this point. His comeback is a little underwhelming when it comes, but Ron is fucking killing it.
Ron Simmons was an incredible specimen, as they say, of athletes.
Though he does fuck up taking the spine buster from Arn. He doesn't open his legs for it.
You gotta do that.
But Arn doesn't seem to mind too much. He lets Ron do like the full power kick out, popping him up from it, which was putting him over pretty big. That Arn Anderson spinebuster was always, sold like a big deal.
Well, this match ends in a double countout, but Flair and Arn definitely had it in their minds to put over the guys in Doom. Flair made a career as world champion of losing by countout and putting over the guy he was working with. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. At one point in the match, Teddy Long slaps Ric Flair in the face, which was cool. Yeah. Like that. And Flair, just, little shit he does, like reaching for the tag for a second and then doing the Flair flop. Like, oh, I got it. Nope. Flop. Right on his face.
Yeah, he got real close to the tag on that one.
Real close, yeah.
Real close. Didn't quite make it, but yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of big moves toward the end of the match. A big top rope shoulder tackle from Reed. And Arn Anderson does a DDT, which according to Paulie is the best DDT he's ever seen. Which is a fucking lie.
Better than the one he saw earlier today.
Yes, maybe. But I will not believe that Paul E. had not seen a Jake the Snake Roberts match before. And all of his DDTs are better than any DDT that was on this show. So
yes, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's double count out, so no satisfying conclusion on this match, but there were finishes for those first 3 tag matches, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine, that you're like you said, there were finishes. All the matches didn't end like this, and by the end of the night, nobody cared what happened on the rest of the card anyway. Because the final finish was so stupid, which we're not getting to quite yet.
Not yet.
A match that's maybe kind of an infamous match comes up next, and it's Stan the Lariat Hansen versus Lex Luger for the U.S. title.
This match fucking rules, man. This whole series between Luger and Hansen is great. Because, there's more matches after this. And Hansen, I think this really did a lot for Luger. I think these are Luger's best matches of his career, possibly. Luger was fucking hot at the time. And he, he's good in this. He has a lot of fire.
Young Luger was good. Mid-range egomaniac Luger wasn't so good. But early Luger, when he was still so full of fire, was great.
Against Hansen's fucking total insanity. He gives this fucking promo with a pumpkin, and his mouth is full of tobacco, and he's just spitting tobacco juice on the pumpkin.
It's just pouring out of his mouth.
Oh my God, it's really disgusting, but
it's so nasty, but it's great.
It gets the character over big time. Holy shit, he comes to the ring totally wild, like destroying the set and throwing things around.
Just like he does in Japan.
Yeah, and as fucking Paulie puts it, or no, as JR puts it, I think he's crazy. That's what's wrong with him. He was kicked out of West Texas State University, according to JR.
And he's been banned from America multiple times, which is what they used to say whenever he'd go to Japan.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is around the time of the matches with Vader, too.
Yeah, he was one of the top wrestlers in the world.
And he was willing to help these young guys, which is cool.
I mean, you hardly hear a bad word about Stan Hansen personally. You hear a couple of bad things about how he conducted business, but most of that is that he knew that his bread and butter was in Japan, so he didn't care about your business. If you paid him properly, he would take care of your business, and if you didn't, then he wouldn't. He famously was given the AWA title fairly shortly before the AWA folded, and then Vern told him, okay, you're going to drop it to Nick Bockwinkel, and we haven't paid you yet. So Hansen just sent back the belt after driving over it with his truck a few times. He didn't need this bullshit. He was big in Japan, man.
Right. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And, and I guess he had a reputation for being pretty stiff, but you
Yes.
can't blame him. The guy couldn't see.
That's the other story, is that without his glasses, he was completely blind, and you can kind of see it when he's wrestling.
Yes.
That he can't see where he is. He never knew where he was throwing his lariat.
Right. When he hits Luger with it in this match, he just basically clubs him in the side of the head.
Right. It wasn't a straight clothesline. He was way far to the left. But he does club Luger in the head, and Luger sells it like he was bludgeoned in the head with a heavy object. He's out forever. They give Hansen the belt. Hansen takes it, and his bell, which he has, which he tried to hit Luger with.
Well, that Dan Spivey, Hansen's protege, apparently.
Yes, dangerous Danny Spivey.
Brought to the ring. Yeah. No, the match is cool, man. Lex really brings the fight. He knows he's, if you're fighting a guy like Stan Hansen, you got to fight. Right? Like, I think it's the kind of thing where he'll hit you, and if you hit him back just as hard, then he might pull back a little bit. But if you don't hit him back, he'll keep hitting you harder. He'll just keep hitting you. He'll just keep beating you up. I heard, again, it's an interview that I can remember distinctly, but I can't remember who it was, saying trying to face Haku, Meng. And he says what he was told before the match, what Meng told him is I'm going to fight you, and you got to fight back. If you don't fight back, I'm just going to keep hitting you. Right.
And again, a guy who everybody says is the toughest guy they know. You don't hear a lot of problems with him in the ring as long as you know how to work with him.
Exactly, yeah.
Because, the truth about a guy like Haku is that he lost a lot to everybody, and nobody ever thought he was any less tough or a threat.
Right.
And he didn't mind putting you over as long as you held up your end of the bargain.
So the end of the match is kind of weird, where Luger signals for the torture rack, but then hits the ropes like he's going to clothesline him. And that's when he gets whacked with the lariat. He should have just gone for the rack.
Maybe he could have got the rack. But he didn't get the rack. He got the lariat right in the face.
It was pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
So that was another, between this match and the Steiners match, you had two really satisfying finishes, which almost makes up for what happened in the main event. But before we get to the main event, we get an interview with Theodore R. Long, who reminds us, he reminds us that homie don't play that, and you know that word.
Do I?
I don't know.
I can think of a couple of words.
Yeah, was that about the N-word?
I don't know, maybe. See, the thing is, the homie don't play that line is from, for all you youngins there, it's from In Living Color, which was a big show at the time.
Homie the Clown.
Homie the Clown. It was the thing about the early 90s is it was the real beginning of clown subversion in popular culture. You didn't get you got a few. You got killer clowns from outer space and shit in the 80s. But most clowns up until alternative hit culture were traditional clowns.
Right, this is before your insane posses of clowns.
Just before, but yes. And, Homie the Clown comes out, and he would, whack people with his sack full of stuff and be rude. And it was huge. It was absolutely huge. If you've never seen a Homie the Clown sketch, find it.
On the playground, we would say, "Homie, don't play that," repeatedly and constantly. All day. It was a
Color
big
was the
fucking
shit.
thing, yeah. And especially for a little kid, it was like just late enough at night and just sort of adult enough that you could see it. Like your parents wouldn't stop you from seeing it, but you probably shouldn't have been seeing it. Right. And so we thought we were very edgy.
Yeah,
because of
they had edgier programming in the first place, and that was kind of the deal.
Check out In Living Color; it's an incredible show. Yeah. Tons of people who became enormous talents were on there.
Well, there was
Damon Wayans, all the Wayans, Jim Carrey, John Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo was not on In Living Color. They gave John Leguizamo a show like In Living Color a couple of years after In Living Color.
He wasn't on In Living Color first?
No. They gave him his own. I don't think so. If I'm wrong, please tell me. I always thought John Leguizamo deserved better than he got from Hollywood, honestly.
His show, I remember his show, which was cool.
Yeah, House of Buggin'. So what the deal was with In Living Color, it's, there was so much comedy, but almost every show that had a bunch of comedy on it had almost no black people on it, or they had no black people on it. So Keenan Ivory Wayans put together a show with an almost all-black cast, and it was the first time that had really happened in a sketch comedy show like that, and it was a huge hit. They gave John Leguizamo one, and they tried to fill it with Latino people. As my recollection goes.
Okay, no, you're right.
And it didn't work as well because In Living Color already existed. It was just a knockoff of In Living Color.
Got you. Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez.
One of the Fly Girls.
Jamie Foxx was on there. Chris Rock.
It's a great show. Chris Rock, yeah. What's his name? I got his face in my head, but I can't think of his name. Another David Alan Grier.
David Alan Grier?
Yeah, David Alan Grier was on.
Yeah. Okay. Leguizamo wasn't on. Yeah, no. Some of that stuff blurs together.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You think he was on In Living Color because you saw his knockoff show that was In Living Color, but him and his buddies instead.
Gotcha.
And it didn't work because it was just a knockoff. I'd like to see that, though. I bet it's funny. John Leguizamo's very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So, why the fuck were we talking about In Living Color? Oh, Homie, don't play that.
Homie, don't play that.
Homie, don't play that.
It was that and Bart Simpson.
So this is the only reason why. So I thought Doom were just straightforward baby faces this whole time until Long announces that they're not giving the Horsemen any other title matches.
Yeah.
Which seemed heelish.
It's a heel move.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the booking didn't make much sense at this point, and they were about to change bookers several times in a row.
So Missy Hyatt joins the commentary team at this point and bickers with Paulie over who first predicted that Sid would win.
Yeah.
Yeah, riveting stuff.
Right.
they wanted to get Missy on TV a little bit more.
They cut off as soon as she was done talking, and her promo is what it was, very sunny, except Sunny came later.
Yeah. Yeah, I always liked Missy. I wasn't quite sure. I was a little confused as a kid about what she did. Yeah. Because she wasn't really managing anyone specifically at the time. She was just in the magazines, and I don't know.
Well, we later found out what Missy did. Let's move on to the main event.
Okay. And
oh man.
Speaking of what Missy did.
If you watch the last ECW pay-per-view, which is on Peacock, I'm sure, because they uploaded all of that. Hyatt's on that show. She had already had a bunch of plastic surgery. They cut to the back, and she's getting out of the shower.
I remember naked. All that shit. Yeah.
And I can't remember who she interacts with. Some guy comes and starts talking to you, and her reaction is to look at him and go, "Who are you? Did I fuck you?"
Oh man.
Yeah, ECW was great in the 90s. ECW is great if you go back and watch it with that mindset. But by the end of ECW, it had become a parody of itself.
Right.
And it had some good stuff, and I think it would have cycled back if it stuck around, but it didn't.
But I think part of what made ECW so good was it was exposing the like seedy underbelly of WCW in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. People would come on fresh from WCW and just be like, man, let me tell you how much that sucked. They'd dress up and shit, you know? It's like, watch the Pillman sketches, watch the Austin sketches,
the war,
watch all the Mick Foley stuff, you know?
Yeah, ECW, like, they warred with WWF a little bit, like, as part of the story, like, publicly. Right. But the real war was between ECW and WCW.
Definitely. All right,
we'll get into more of that as we go along. Yeah, okay, so, with the podcast. So, yes, main event, the master and ruler of the world, Sid Vicious, challenging Sting for Sting's first World Heavyweight Championship. Mm-hmm. Sid is very new at this point, but he is great. He's very nimble. His movement in the ring kind of reminds me of Randy Orton. Except he's like that much bigger than Orton.
Yeah. Sid was great. I mean, I'm a big Sid fan, of course. But he could move. All his joints worked. He had not yet settled into his super big man style, although he did know how to do all of that.
Well, it's great because, like, the way he's sold. So he's, like, in an arm bar. And he'll stop to just yell at the camera a bunch. And then kind of, like, remember that his arm hurts and sell a little bit. And then go back to yelling at the camera. Good shit.
Sid.
He does a terrible headlock takeover, though. His technique was not quite there for those kinds of things.
Oh, no, that's not why you watch Sid. No. In fact, for the opposite is why you watch Sid.
Yes.
And the Sting, of course, was Sting. You know, what can you say about Sting? He's full of energy. He's there. He's crowd's way into him because, of course, they are. He's the world champion, you know?
He does that great dive running all the way down the ramp and jumping over the ropes into the ring onto Sid.
Right, that's near the end, yeah.
They work really well together. And I was really enjoying this match because I forgot what the finish was. I mean, I already know not to expect to be satisfied at the end of a WCW pay-per-view.
Oh, definitely not. Sid starts pushing Sting like up the ramp, and Heyman starts screaming like, "Why is he going further away from the ring?"
Okay. The sequence of events really doesn't make any sense.
No.
First, Flair and Arn show up for no reason, and they're just standing there.
They're the Horsemen.
Yeah, right. They're part of the Horsemen. They come out. They don't do anything. They just come out. Then, as you said, Sting runs Sid off to the back. Then suddenly, after not very long, after like 15, 20 seconds, Sid comes back, tailed by someone who is apparently Sting. Now, if you're only half paying attention, I was taking notes at the time, so I wasn't really looking that close. And I think they did a pretty good job of making it look like it was really Sting.
Yeah, on camera, sure.
He doesn't look at the camera. All that happens...
He's only on screen for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, he gets in the ring, looks like he's trying to body slam Sid. Sid falls on top, 1, 2, 3. Sid wins and is the World Heavyweight Champion.
Apparently. 3 or 4 kids in the front row go nuts. A lot of people start cheering. Sid is very popular. As much as the crowd was into Sting, they would have accepted Sid.
But then Sting comes out with a rope, like part of a rope around his wrist, like he had been tied up and then had like cut himself loose. But there was not enough time for any of this to happen.
No, not at all. I think they did an edit for the home video.
But also I think it would have made sense if Arn and Flair had come out later. So then we could have thought, oh, Arn and Flair jumped him and tied him up in the back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because otherwise, was Sid really going to be able to do that on his own? And if he could do that on his own, then why not just beat him in the ring?
Yeah, why not just pin Sting?
So then it turns out it wasn't Sting. It was actually Barry Windham, apparently.
The refs communicate for a second about it, and the match gets restarted.
The ref very quickly figures out what happened. Way too quickly for a referee, as we have come to learn about their cognition. And yeah, restarts the match. Flair hits Sid with the belt and puts him in a small package. It hits the Stinger Splash, puts him in a small package, and Sting wins.
Right, immediately.
And it's like, if you were going to have Sting win, just have him fucking beat the guy. He doesn't have to tap him out with the fucking Scorpion Deathlock. He can put him in a small package like he did.
They could do the same thing. Maybe even the ref could get distracted and Sting could hit him with the belt. It would be fine.
Right, you could have...
Crowd would have liked it.
You could have Flair and Arn try to cheat first.
Yeah. So
that he has some justification for using the belt.
They could have done all kinds of stuff that wasn't this.
Or do the fucking screw job, because they kind of pulled it off pretty well as a screw job, and make Sid the champion, if you're going to do that.
Yeah, Sting could fight for it back. There is your Starrcade main event. Oh no, but they have to build to the Black Scorpion.
But how does this build to the Black Scorpion?
Well, the Black Scorpion, he's coming to get you, Sting.
With his black magic. He's going to give
you
a
knows
taste
you,
of it.
Sting. Remember, Sting? Yeah, that was Starrcade is worse this year.
Yeah. We're going to cover that match. We're going to do a
Yeah.
Sting episode eventually, and we'll have to do the best and worst of Sting. And that I would certainly pick as the bad match. Though, actually, there's a few things you could pick for Sting.
That would be the bad match kind of pre-NWO, I'd say.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and then, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that happened in TNA.
Definitely.
And WWE, actually. That match with Seth Rollins isn't pretty.
No, I mean, it was okay, but then he hurts himself.
Yeah. In any
Anyways,
case,
that's Halloween Havoc 1990. Like, it was really a good show piece by piece, but that was WCW's problem. They left fans with a bad taste in their mouth at the end of the night.
Yep.
And that's no good, you know? It's like, there's a reason that when you go see a band, they usually play their biggest hit last or a big fan favorite last. And, you know, if you ever seen a band that doesn't play their big hit, even if the rest of the show was great, you understand what it's like.
Fuck, man. If they had given Sid the title here, the rematch could have been a huge match for Starrcade.
Yeah.
Instead of doing Sting versus the Black Scorpion.
Right. They could have extended the Black Scorpion if they wanted to, until whatever the hell the next show was.
Sid would have been a great champion at this time.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't win the title until years later, until he won the WWF title.
Pretty promptly, the WWF picked up Sid after this.
Yeah, for a little while, and then he left and he came back.
Yes, then he left and he came back, and then he left and then he came back.
Yeah.
Sid was inconsistent performer.
True.
I think you could say. It's okay though. I still think he's great.
Absolutely.
Master and the ruler of the world and all.
We'll do a lot more Sid soon.
Oh yeah, we got to get Katie in on some of the Sid stuff.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, she's a big Sid fan. Because Katie had never seen Sid. Then we watched a bunch of Nitro from like 99, 2000. She's like, oh no, this guy. Why is this guy not just the champion? And then he won the title. It's like, oh, good.
He just looks so cool. He talks cool. And at this point, he moved really well. He wrestled well. What the fuck? Oh, yeah. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, if you want to check out Sting versus Sid, the match is good up until the shitty finish. Definitely,
it's notable.
Definitely go out of your way to see Steiner Brothers versus Nasty Boys. It fucking rules. And I would say check out Luger versus Stan Hansen as well.
Yeah, Luger and Hansen is great. It's only about it's less than 10 minutes long.
Yeah, and you know the Doom Horseman match is cool too, but you know,
look, this is a good show.
It's a good show.
You know, if you're
It's a good show.
looking for a show to watch on Peacock, it's only 2 hours long. It's not 3. It's shorter than an episode of Monday Night Raw.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and put it on.
And more happens of consequence, and it is infinitely more satisfying for me, at least, than in any episode of Monday Night Raw that's happened in the last 10, 15 years.
Just the endless segments of nothing. At some point fairly recently, I went through and I compiled the entire. Sometime recently, I compiled the entire relevant build-up to Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3. And it's a series of Piper's Pits.
Right.
And a contract signing. And all of it put together on a playlist, all of it is about 35 minutes long. And they drew, 90,000 people or whatever to that stadium.
Yeah.
Like, that's all they had to do. They told a whole story through 3-minute segments, and it was intense, and it worked, and it drew huge.
Yeah, each one push the story forward.
Right.
Develop the characters.
They gave a trophy to Andre. They gave Hogan came out and congratulated him. They gave a bigger trophy to Hulk. Andre is getting kind of jealous. Heenan convinces Andre that he needs to challenge Hogan. He does. Hogan is a wreck. They do the contract signing. Let's all watch WrestleMania.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, well, yeah, we can spend more time complaining about contemporary WWE.
All day long. I will say that match for match Halloween Havoc 90 years better than WrestleMania 3. There's a lot of throwaway stuff on WrestleMania 3.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, if you brought if you condensed WrestleMania 3 down to 2 hours,
yeah,
it would be hard.
You'd have to cut a lot out.
I mean, but you've got Savage Steamboat, which really goes a long way.
Yeah, and then Piper
Adonis,
and the main event,
the 6-man tag with the Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs.
Yep.
Jake Roberts and Honky Tonk. Pretty
cool.
Yeah.
But then there's like 10 more matches.
Harley Race and JYD is pretty good.
There's like 9 more matches.
Yeah. Coco Beware and Butch Reed. Anyway, it's a weird comparison to make, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but it came up, so we compared a little.
Yeah.
We compared a little. All right, so I guess we're going to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everybody, very much for listening.
Yes.
Thank you to our patrons. And, we appreciate the patronage every week, of course. And, yeah.
We're going to keep it coming. We're going to keep it coming with this random shit.
Oh, yeah, whatever we can think of.
Let us know.
Because we still like doing this.
If you want something else.
This shit out there.
Yeah. Now, we're going to be going back to our series a little more lately, but Miss Katie Vella has been busy reffing.
Yeah, she's been busy. She's actually at a show right now, reffing. So that's good for her. And, follow all of us on the various social medias. Hey, look, this has been Contesting Wrestling. Thank you all very much for listening. For Professor Ben Abelson, I'm Doc Diamondfire. Good evening, morning, or afternoon. We love you.
Peace.
Peace.